Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at whoknewpodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 7 of season 7, The Rings of Akhaten. For Clara's first official trip in the TARDIS, she wants to see something awesome, so the Doctor takes her to an alien street market to try food. This episode is written by Neil Cross, directed by Farron Blackburn, and originally aired on the 6th of April 2013, and was originally watched by 5.5 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hello, this is Josh.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hey y'all, it's Kelsey.
And today we have two guests, one returning. We have John and Lauren.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, welcome. Lauren, can you tell us how you were introduced into Doctor Who?
Yes, absolutely. I had a good friend who was super into Doctor Who, and she tried to get me to watch it, and I started with Rose, and I watched 2 or 3 episodes, and I super set it aside. I'm like, this is not for me. I really don't like it. I just like it's so campy. The effects are so bad. So I tried to watch it, and it wasn't for me. And then 2 years later, I was going through a breakup, and I'm like, maybe I'll try watching it again. And I did, and it's like, oh my God, this is what my life has been missing. It just really helped me, through that process. So I binged everything I could, and I got a tattoo before I even finished that. Like I have a Doctor Who tattoo. I was all in my second attempt. So and now it's my favorite thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's probably like the safest rebound out there.
Indeed.
And the coolest. The Doctor was your rebound. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of those first 3 episodes today?
Oh, I love them.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I do. It's like my second attempt. It was like totally fresh eyes, completely brand new viewing experience for me. And I don't know if it's because I was just in such a different place then. It was only 2 years later. So I don't know. But there's definitely like...
It makes a difference.
Yeah, there's definitely like a sadness in the show that, curse the time where you can like really zero in on that. And I'm like, oh, I'm sad. He's sad.
And that was at the beginning of the run of the series?
Yes, I started with Rose. Yep.
Very cool. Thanks again for joining us on this episode. The Doctor ends up stalking Clara throughout her life in order to find out who she is. He watches from the shadows as Clara's father is hit in the face by a leaf, the same leaf that is the first page in her book. As he staggers into the street, he is saved from being hit by a car by a woman destined to be Clara's mother. He watches Clara from her birth to her mother's funeral. But after all that, he is still no closer to understanding this impossible girl.
Very succinct.
Well, did you guys notice that piece of music? It's Ghost Town by the Specials, and I know that song from the opening credits of Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I recognized it.
Because it kind of sets the time period that this is taking place in. I think it's 2005 when we see the tombstone on Clara's mother's grave. And,
yes, it was 2005.
And again, 2005 is when the episode Rose aired.
Yes.
And Lauren was going through a breakup.
I was. Look, I was very sad. And the show is exactly what I needed.
A tombstone. Oh, you're talking about the other episode. And then her mother's name is Ellie Oswald, but then in the book later, you see that her maiden name is Ravenwood, which is to me like a homage to Indiana Jones, Marion Ravenwood.
That's how I took it.
And there'll be another Indiana Jones homage later.
Well, I just thought it was Raven. Be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, as in face the.
Yes. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Says the man whose last name is Rook.
Well, I know what I'm talking about. I just thought it was odd. It always struck me as odd when the leaf hit her father in the face, and then all of a sudden he's 12 feet away into the center of the street. He was on the sidewalk, and then just boom, right in the middle of the street.
That's the
how
thing.
it
There is no sidewalk.
Oh.
Last night, He wasn't on where the cards were driving, but there wasn't like a curb or anything.
No.
So
I think there's a continuity position opening up on the next season of Doctor Who. I popped the episode on when we were starting, and there is a sidewalk. It's the same asphalt as the street, but there is a curb, and he does stumble into the middle of the street very, very quickly.
Big steps. Big steps.
Yeah, big steps. It was cut for rhythm, not continuity.
also, is it just me, or does that leaf keep changing in every scene?
Yeah, it changes size, and and how
Color or
it
shape.
crumbled up. He had it crumbled up like it was as what's the word when something lasts? As it was tough as a dollar bill in his pocket for like their whole first week of dating, or who knows how much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Sturdy as a dollar bill.
It became parchment, is what had happened. It just turned into parchment. But it did seem, I mean, nowadays a little creepy that he's following her everywhere.
Yeah.
At the time when we first saw it, it was, he's trying to find out where she came from, what's going on. So it didn't seem to see it that way, But nowadays, it's especially, what are you doing? How involved did you get into her life?
Also, she's a child.
Yeah.
Doing?
It just changes a little bit in the perceptive.
I don't think it's any more creepy than a lot of the stuff with him and young Amy, though.
Mm-hmm.
It is an interesting mirror to Amy, Clara's whole existence. I mean, you can't not see it, right? Because the Doctor's companion, he's going back to their childhood and really affecting, well, maybe not in Clara's case so much, but affecting their lives. As we get to know Clara's story a little more, Amy really didn't have history, right? Like all of her history was sucked into the crack, where Clara has too much history. So it's I think the difference between those two is something I'm going to keep an eye out as this time goes on with Clara and Amy, or with Clara.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was that you might kind of bring to this is the prequel to The Bells of St. John, where the Doctor and Amy I did it the Doctor and Clara, they meet, but he doesn't know it's Clara yet on the swings, that little webisode prequel thing.
Yes.
But she wasn't as young as she was in this episode.
I think they just is it because Matt Smith just has like a really good repertoire with kids, or do you know, Eugene, or anybody else, like why they keep coming back to like little kids with Matt Smith?
I mean, he does have a good chemistry with kids.
And it is
that's
a kid's
for
show,
sure.
yeah.
I think that they write to actors' strengths. Yeah, and that's a good point too. It's a kid's show. Like this whole episode, I felt like if I was a kid this girl's age, what she was going through would really affect me, being lost or trying to run away and stuff like that. So having aliens come looking for me.
I will say I'm very impressed with Clara's father, because if a leaf hit me in the face and I almost got hit by a car, I'd crumple that thing up immediately. Like, what is this? And then I'd probably talk about it for 4 hours, and then Clara would never be born.
I did have a question about the scene at the very end when Clara is standing next to her mother's tomb, the gravesite. There's a person next to her, and watching it now, not the very first time I've seen it, that person definitely stood out to me, because I was like, oh wait, does Clara have a brother? And so
Or is her father?
That's the father. It's a dad. Yeah.
I just thought they forgot to age up the
is
dad.
it?
But
He's got gray hair.
He's got gray hair.
Yeah,
They needed to do a lot more.
they need. Yeah,
I agree.
So it was the same actor. Yeah.
well, they spent all their money on makeup with all the aliens.
Yes.
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm.
But before that scene where he talks to her, that way he gets hit in the head with the ball when she's much little, we don't see any quick shots of him.
No,
then.
we do. He's reading
Beano.
By the way, that magazine, Eugene, I know there's a significance to it, but I knew you'd probably look it up. You know what Beano magazine in 1981?
Yes, in 1981, the Beano magazine had a special Doctor Who theme edition.
Oh.
Cool.
Love it.
They should have had that cover.
The issue of the Beano that was reprinted and included in the special Doctor Who themed edition, and that came out on May 15th, 2013, which was it was like current with this episode when it aired.
Oh.
Not
Synergy.
the other way. Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. It was reprinted in 2013, but it was from 1981. Just my notes are all over the place.
At least you're editing it, so you can sound great.
It was like 1981. Beano in 20.
So it seems like it's one of those things that to me, it was the same thing as if he was holding up a highlights magazine.
Yes.
Although I don't know how you youngins if you had highlights, but we did, the old people.
I had a subscription.
Okay, good.
It was at the doctor's offices.
Yes.
for me.
The dentist for me, yeah.
And somebody had already circled the hidden animals.
Yeah, I hated that.
Ruined it for
Yeah.
everybody.
In the present, Clara eagerly awaits the Doctor's arrival while holding her book of 101 Places to See. As she enters the TARDIS, the Doctor asks her what she wants to see. Something awesome is her reply, and he takes her to an asteroid that's part of a ring orbiting a huge celestial object. There, they go to a crowded alien marketplace and wander about. Clara meets a young girl named Mary Galel. She is the Queen of Years, a person taken as a baby and brought up to know all the history, stories, and songs of her people. At the moment, she is being pursued by two different groups of men, the first dressed in robes similar to Mary's, and the other in black uniforms and masks. Clara takes her to the TARDIS, which does not let them in, so they hide behind it. Mary confesses that she is scared because she needs to sing a special song in front of everyone and doesn't want to mess it up. Clara convinces her that she will be all right, and they find the two men in robes just before the Festival of Offerings ceremony begins.
I think in this case, Brian's spiritual animal is the TARDIS for Clara. I don't think she likes me.
He called it an it. That's what did it.
Ah, yes.
I loved that little thing. The TARDIS doesn't like her.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it had become more important. I mean, we kind of do. We do find out why, but I wanted it to be a bit more interesting. Not in a, the TARDIS is always doing bad things to her. I just wanted it to be like the Doctor thinking about it more. Why would the TARDIS not like her? I thought that would have been an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It just like pops up once or twice more.
Yeah, like when you introduce two different friends together and they don't get along, you're like, but they like me. Why don't they get along? But going back to Rose and even Amy, this new run with Clara is sort of following the same formula where we have a modern day episode and then the next episode is going into the future, and then it's very much again like the Beast Below with Amy, where there's hooded figures kind of chasing after a young person, and the companion latches onto that and kind of comforts this young person through whatever tribulations they're going through. So I think they kind of have this formula down of what they should do to introduce a companion to the Doctor and us as Doctor Who viewers.
Right.
But the concept, when we get a little more further into it, of psychocurrency, or what they call it, psychic current, I can't remember what it's called, but sentimental things.
Yeah.
Right.
Are the currency instead of like denominations of paperbacks or gold or precious metals. It's weird because like those two things, and again, this is my personal preference, is that they kind of live in two separate worlds, like the fantasy elements of like magical things and how you give up something that has worth to you is not, for me, it doesn't fit with this marketplace or farmer's market full of aliens, where I think that it would be more of a barter system, like give me some of your alien fruit for this alien fruit. And like renting a moped, it just seems odd that I would give up like a treasured trinket. But
after you watch the entire episode, though, you can kind of see why that society would have developed that system.
Yeah, I wanted it to, like, that's definitely a question I have in the beginning, and it is answered. But again, for me, it's like I compartmentalize those two things. So in order for it to make sense for me, I would like a little bit more history of how this society developed, because it's not one society, it's multiple societies gathering together to sing to something. And I'm like, how did multiple things sort of develop this ritual, if you will? But the other thing that made me kind of think about how this had worked for me in the past is the movie Johnny Mnemonic, where he takes parts of his memory for hard drive space. Like, that's actually giving it up as opposed to giving up the emotion of it. And this is me being like very hard sci-fi and hard fantasy. Like, these are two separate genres.
But this episode in particular is very fantasy.
Yes.
Like
with just the sci-fi backdrop, and I get that.
Yeah.
And I think when you think about it, it is kind of I don't want to say anti-classist, but it's where we're used to, you mentioned like precious metals or like precious gems having value. In this society, you don't have to have access to certain things to have wealth so that you could actually get something. If you have, like Clara used her ring, like if you are a poor person or someone who doesn't have, a lot of material things, you can still have any material thing that you have charged with a value. So I think it's, in a way, it's more economically fair.
Yes, for
in
sure.
this society, possibly.
I wish they had written the episode about that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wish that episode had focused on that. That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
And like while you were talking, I thought of something that actually works for me in this little aspect is the movie Stardust, where you give up things for spells and other things.
What a great movie.
Yeah, I know. People should watch
Very
this.
underrated.
Just watch Star Trek. Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with this, Eugene. Again, we're always opposites. Because I liked how they set it up and then explained it. So you got it later on going, oh, that's how this whole thing set up to be that way, that it's all sentimental.
And again, this is a kid's show, so I'm like, hey, I don't have, I'm a 5-year-old. I have what, $5, $20 allowance? I'm not going to have enough to buy a moped.
Allowance. Jeez.
Wow.
$20.
What a brand.
Rolling in it.
Inflation.
Yeah, inflation. So I get that. For a kid, that's appealing. Like, I can give up something that's emotionally valuable.
The one thing I didn't like about it as a adult is that the doctor wasn't willing to sacrifice anything, and I would think that in his pocket somewhere he would have a scrap of paper that would have had more sentimental value than
Or like a
Close
pair of
ring.
glasses
Yeah.
that we just saw.
yeah.
I totally thought that's. I mean, yeah, I totally thought that's where it was going. I mean,
I wish
Yeah,
I had
you
written
see
that
that.
episode.
The doctor did eventually give up some stuff, and he gave up his memories, or his his experiences, but it wasn't a physical thing. Like he
Yeah,
made
because he doesn't.
made
The doctor
Clara give
doesn't.
up.
The doctor doesn't lose a thing.
Right.
Right. That's a good. Well, yeah, that's what kind of got me at the end, which we'll get to. But that's a good point, Lauren. Like they basically writing wise set up. He can't give anything in the beginning, and then he gives everything at the end. But he didn't give anything up. He just let someone use it.
Like share.
But-
It's more sharing.
Yeah.
he just
Well, that was
shared it.
caring.
He didn't.
Caring, yeah.
One small thing, like nerdy thing, is that like the moped dealer, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
I got a big kick out of the barking conversation, but it totally wipes the whole TARDIS language translator thing.
Yeah.
I
Right
mean,
there,
I have
one
a
of the-
theory.
One of the
Oh.
one of the biggest
I just-
gimmicks
Yep.
in
I have a
the
theory.
whole. Okay, go ahead.
The TARDIS doesn't like Clara, so the TARDIS is not translating it for her.
All right, that's a great Frankenstein reason.
Yeah.
oh,
Man,
Frankenstein.
that is a rough start with Clara.
Yeah.
Rough.
And I thought it was more just. Wait,
Nailed
You're
it.
barking up the wrong tree.
I thought it was more just a style over story.
It was.
Oh, for sure.
They wanted
for sure.
it to
It's
be more
totally was.
alien, which
But
frustrated me
the
because
whole, the conceit of this show is part of the gimmick tree of the world, and they make many points to set up that that's a thing. You could also say she hasn't been on the TARDIS long enough because
That's
true.
she hasn't.
but the TARDIS did translate for her for human
For
looking.
everyone else.
For everyone else, right?
Yeah.
So that was, I thought, strange that she could understand those that looked human.
Yeah. To me, it's just the
Yeah.
TARDIS is toying with her. But half the time in Star Trek they're speaking Klingon, the other half they're speaking English. It just depends on what they need at that specific
Oh, for
moment.
sure. Yeah, but I'm just saying, you set up a rule and then you kind of follow it loosely. It doesn't. It stops becoming a rule.
It really
Guys,
took
we'll
more
talk
from
about
Doctor
the
Who.
sonic screwdriver later.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that rule is it does whatever it wants ever since it started.
yeah, right.
At the top of this paragraph, when Clara and the doctor are in the TARDIS talking, just to take us back there, I thought that whole scene was written and choreographed so well. It was like a dance, like the doctor and Clara were just going around the TARDIS console, and yeah, just that moment felt like what's the guy who wrote the Newsroom?
Aaron Sorkin.
Yes, that moment just felt like an Aaron Sorkin, type of scene where all the
Walk and
characters
talk.
they had the best dialogue and it comes snappy, and at the same time there's all the choreography going back and forth. That was at the top of this paragraph. That was a favorite scene of mine of this episode. It was just so
Yeah.
active.
For sure.
I was gonna say it's also very fun, that interaction. It's she's new to him, she's a mystery and he loves that. But it's very exciting. She's into it. She's like, oh my god. So it's definitely a very infectious, fun interaction as well.
For sure, yeah.
And they have great timing together.
Oh yes, they have since the beginning.
Mhm.
I also really love this TARDIS console room. I think this is one of my favorite designs in New Who.
So good.
For sure, yeah.
Just wanted to throw that in there.
This is the reason I really like Clara and the 11th Doctor, is that they do have that time and they do have that chemistry and they do have that banter. It works really well for me. So I always liked her with 11 more than I liked her with 12. Because I think
Same.
they also
Opposite.
didn't have enough they didn't have enough episodes
Yeah.
for me.
They didn't have enough episodes.
It's
Agreed.
like it was only a half a season. It's like, no, I wanted more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why it's so good, because we can imagine what else it could have been.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on real quick, just about Clara and Mary, or you mentioned the formula of
Yes.
companion interacting with kids. It's also very on brand for Clara, as we find out that she's been a nanny, she's been a
Yes.
teacher, like a
Right.
governess, like she's always had a connection to kids
Yeah.
in like every form. So I think this is just it is formulaic for Doctor Who, but it's also very formulaic for Clara's character.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It's nice when they kind of converge and it's like jiving. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. You just helped me, because when I think of future Clara, it's at this moment when she's helping the little girl that I'm like, butt out. Just
No.
stop it. Just go away. Nobody asked for your help.
And
I'm
now
thinking,
I want to be the
I
doctor
don't-
to you and
but
just
it-
make you forget what's coming up.
I know. Because at the exact same time, I'm thinking, well, Rose does the same thing. Yeah, but Rose is cool. Martha does the same thing. Yeah, but Martha's cool. It's just like, I just look at Clara now and I'm like, ugh. It's not like I dislike it. I'm just really disappointed.
At this point, I think she's really following suit and is a very strong companion.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also in this marketplace that the doctor mentions he brought his granddaughter here.
Yeah.
Is that from an actual classic story?
Or
I don't
what's
think
the
so.
big
It-
business?
somewhat
What's
limited.
the
Yeah, I don't think so.
what's the radio place called?
Big Finish.
Big Finish. Big business.
I used to
Well,
call
they
it
do
Big
that
Fish.
too. They do that.
Yes,
too.
they do.
Yeah, I think it's probably a shout out, just a shout out for
Yeah.
classic Who fans.
Yeah.
Little Easter egg there.
And her reaction to, you have a granddaughter? Look.
Yes.
Right.
But he never took her there to mention like Akhaten in the classic.
I mean, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
My first Doctor knowledge is I'd say 50% at this point, going back with Taylor and Podcastica, but I don't recall anything about this place.
Well, I again was curious about this, so I looked it up. The Doctor has more than one grandchild,
That's-
and so the Doctor's two grandkids in this particular comic book story are John and Gillian. Gillian is a girl, and John is a guy.
Jillian?
Or Gillian, whatever.
It could be either. It's
Yeah.
pronounced sometimes it's pronounced either way.
And this says that it was released in the 60s, the 64 to 65 run of the comic book.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Nice.
Which doctor?
The first, I assume, right?
Doctor
I'm
Who?
thinking it's the first Doctor, yeah.
60 to 65?
November
Oh.
64 to January 65 is when this comic book came out, it says.
At that point, it's also just the Doctor.
Yeah.
There is
Right,
no.
yeah.
There is no second.
Right.
So that's about as much as I can get from that one line.
Well, it's still cool.
Yeah,
that is
Completely
cool.
connection.
Right. And it's not Susan like we would think it would be.
And it's not a big deal. It doesn't become a plot point. It's not, there isn't one point where he's like, I remember being here with Susan and they sell mopeds over here.
Right.
It's just a line that he says in passing that's organic and it moves
And it
on.
makes you just think of a bigger world, that's all.
Yeah, that he's that old and blah blah blah. Just to quickly interject how great the production design is of this whole episode. Obviously,
Oh, yes.
I was noticing like, wow, so every alien in the galaxy is ugly to human beings. There aren't even like some other weird looking alien that we may find, beautifully, not attractive, but so I found that kind of funny. But production wise, obviously, I think there's maybe 5 locations in the whole episode, maybe once they get to this place. And the fact that the climax basically plays out like a play. It's all words, all close-ups, all very heady problem solving, no action at all. So that looking back on that, I was like, oh yeah, because all the money went into production design of all those aliens and the marketplace and everything.
Yeah, and they were mostly practical.
They're all great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one that looked like a Hath from Donna's season with the rebreather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say so much so that the moped flying effects were worthy of the pilot Rose.
Yeah, not
Special
good.
effects.
Yes.
And if you notice, whenever they took off or landed, you only saw them from like the chest up, and they would just be like, and then cut wide, and they'd get off.
Yeah, that little motion is really doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
For sure.
They bring Mary to the ceremony, and she stands on a platform facing the huge object which is called Akhaten. Between it and Mary is another asteroid, which has a pyramid on it. Inside, a vocalist is singing to the sleeping mummy and is seamlessly replaced by a second one who continues the song. Mary begins to sing her special song, the long song, which is a lullaby to keep the old god asleep. The Doctor and Clara are in the audience and watch as the worshippers offer their sentimental objects to the old god. The sentimental importance of each item is currency on this planet and feeds the old god. Suddenly, the vocalist in the pyramid falters and the song stops. The mummy steers as a tractor beam latches onto Mary and carries her to the pyramid. The Doctor and Clara go to buy a space moped to save Mary, but the Doctor doesn't carry sentimental things to pay for it. Clara gives up her mother's ring and they fly off to the other asteroid, but it's too late. Mary has been taken into the pyramid.
So even though it was very poignant when it showed on film that there are thousands of people behind this girl, the Doctor and Clara show up moments before she turns and looks right at Clara.
Yeah. Yes.
But I get it. It's whatever. You just know.
Also, this point in the story with the song stopping, I never understand. I never understand exactly what's happening here. And every time I watch it, I get a different view. It's like, and this time it was the vocalist did not falter. The little girl did not make a mistake, which, it was the rumble.
He hit a bad note.
He hit a bad note after the rumble. The rumble surprised him and he was like, it's waking up, the song stops. That's how I took it last night. But every time I see this, but every time I get a different feeling from it. I don't know. And for me, that's bad writing. I don't know what's going on.
I took it as the man who was chasing her in the beginning, to make, was basically the oppressors were the ones who made the mistake, blaming everything on her. And she's taking the brunt of everything. But I'll have to watch it again to see that moment because I wish that he hit a bad note.
If he hit a bad note, I wish he had really hit a bad note.
Yeah.
I mean, make it obvious.
Well, maybe people in Britain just have a better ear than us.
Talking like Peter Brady when it's time to
Well, the Doctor later says that it's neither of their fault, that it's just the time of waking up. It's like a natural disaster. Like, it's going to happen sometime. It just happened this time.
Yeah, and it was the rumble. The rumble is the first indication that it's waking up. And it's just...
But it's nobody's fault. Nobody messed up. It was coming, whether or not they kept singing or not.
And plus, also, once you know the entire intentions behind why the little girl is there, it does kind of make sense where it's like, we all know this is when the thing's going to wake up.
They always have the person who has all the stories ready to go. Yeah. So I think that ceremony happens and they sing and it stays asleep, but it's this year the volcano blew up instead of but it's nobody's.
I don't think they ever actually keep it asleep. It's just asleep until it wakes up.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they're doing. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what they're doing. It's just a ritual.
They're just ready to feed it whenever it wants to.
They're just having the girl prepped to be lunch.
Right. So the lullaby that never ends, the song that doesn't stop, that's just more of a placebo for this culture.
It's a ritual. Yeah,
it's a religion. Yeah.
Makes them feel better. Well, there's a commentary on most religion.
It's an opiate of the masses.
Whatever you need.
I did like the Hands Across America element of all their they're all meaningful effect disintegrating into the clouds and stuff. I really I found that touching.
That was Tafita, so that's where I think the society grew, where the person with the moped, Doreen, now has the ring, and then she can use that as the offering rather than something she has. Something that is more sentimental to her, she can give that ring up, which has a lot of sentiment and is worthy.
Oh, okay. See? So all right, Eugene. I see what you're saying. Okay, so
Yes.
so what you were saying earlier, I guess, like, yeah, does that ring still have the sentimental value to Clara, and does it still work the same when Doreen tries to use it? Like, is
See,
it?
yeah.
I would say
Now
so.
I've got questions.
Right.
Damn it.
See, this is what happens.
Welcome
This is
to
what
our
happens.
show.
Yeah.
Because Frank, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I thought, and I was like, this is where it started for me. Like I had to trace it backwards,
Right.
and I'm like, does a ring that has Clara's memories hold the same value now that Doreen is offering it up to the god, the old god? I want more things explained. That's why I'm like, hard science, hard line between fantasy.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think
an
I would-
infinity stone.
Right.
When Doreen gets the ring, she puts it between her hands and feels it. She can sense
Right.
the sentiment with it. So it's not that she has any sentimental value.
Is that it
attached
has
to
it. It retains
It
it.
has it,
It
yeah.
does
Right,
have
right.
it. So even if it's not for us, it's still ingrained into that object.
Little psychic
Go on.
batteries, and you spend a little psychic energy
Right.
every time.
Yeah.
See, it's
clear.
like this part is where my mind is like, I want the episode to be about this world building,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
where it's more of a set piece.
Is it about the object or is it about the sacrifice the person is making?
Again, this is the curse of having a podcast and dissecting episodes.
I don't think it's about these sacrifice.
I actually think they probably didn't go that
Yeah.
deep on the
Of
thought.
course.
It's going way too deep.
Yes.
But
And they should have, because that's the entire episode.
Eugene, I do
Yeah,
agree
yeah.
with you that there's too much that you have to know at the end of the episode to
Yeah.
enjoy the whole episode. It's like if they have one mystery to let you see it, like this part with just a sentiment, but then it goes on, giving you more, oh, you were wrong this whole way. This is what's really going on. So that's, I agree with you on that. That's too many.
But again, I do understand the emotional buildup for the climax. Like the first time I watched it is fine. It's just that every time I'm rewatching it, I'm too analytical. That's what it is.
Well, yeah, because you once you know the main story, all the little things like, wait, what about that? Wait, what about that? Wait, what about that?
Yeah.
I find, even though there's all these little holes we're pointing out, I found it very entertaining and interesting.
This section definitely benefited from subtitles. I don't know if any of you were able to rewatch the song with the subtitles on, but
Oh yeah.
there are lyrics.
Yes. And also her name is Mary, Merry,
Yeah,
not
like
Mary
Mary.
as in like Mary Magdalene or something. To go with the
Right, Mary.
religious.
Well, I found that out when I rewound it to see the subtitles for those robot-looking people chasing her. They were whispering, "Where are you,
Yes.
Mary?"
Yeah.
I loved that. That was a nice little
Yeah.
creepy effect.
Yeah. Gas masks and kids. They hit it. How can we just get gas masks and kids back together again?
The classics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's like the Beast Below with the Howlers. You have these Whisper Men.
Mm. Whisper Men looked more metal though. That's a band I probably listen to.
You have been on this
Sounds like
podcast
this.
before.
As they make a decision to stay here and actually, try to affect what's happening, the doctor has one quick monologue. Well, it's not really much of a monologue, is it? It's more of a Claire is pestering him.
I feel like it's a monologue, and I
Okay.
feel like that we have the big monologue that everyone remembers at the end. I feel like this one's still pretty good as well.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
There's another one a little later.
Yes.
Not the big one. There's actually,
Not the big,
I'm sorry, I keep talking.
there's like a middle one, and then there's the big one you're talking about, John.
well, and then there's actually another one that we'll get into.
Yes.
There's actually three that I really enjoy.
Good.
I really like this episode.
Yeah.
And the moped flying out to me was a little bit too much. Too much
Cheesy.
flash.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was the difference between a science fiction and a fantasy.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
fantasy,
Yeah,
pure.
well, it's totally, they were on a motorcycle in London or
Yeah.
in that one episode that had so much reality to it that nothing felt fake. Then this, like, I'm watching it now, and they have the floating city behind them on blue screen or green screen,
Yeah.
and it's in perfect focus, and it's thousands and thousands of miles away, and nothing, barely any, except for the aliens. Actually, nothing in this episode feels real.
That's funny that you bring up those space backgrounds because they are kind of out of sync with other things we've seen in Doctor Who. Like,
Yeah,
I think we've
I thought so too.
seen more real stuff. So was this an intentional choice to make it a little campier, to make it a little more fantasy?
I think this as I was watching it, I felt like it feels very storybook in a good way, like not in a good way or bad way. It was just like, and that's one thing I like about the show is it's not always the same thing. You know, this feels like a fantasy storybook. You know, you read like a golden book, you turn the page, and the Doctor and Clara jump on the the moped ship and zoomed across the cosmos. Like, you know, I kind of feel like this show is able to take its liberties with what they try to do with each episode. Problem is, when we binge watch stuff and it kind of looks like a bad EKG chart, it throws us because we really get into the reality of something, and all of a sudden we're thrown into this fantasy, and then we start to get into the fantasy, and then we're thrown into harsh reality. So I think it you know.
Well, yeah, I agree that all the sets were more comic booky or standard old-fashioned TV sets. I mean, you look at Donna going back to Pompeii. That was a very different marketplace than this one. This felt as a set, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but the production design was still
it's still good. I liked it.
Very good. It's just the special effects, aside from the practical effects, were very bad. Unless that was their intent.
They made interesting choices to where to put the budget
right
in this episode, because there is actually one, we haven't gotten to it yet, but my biggest, oh my god, you're acting like it's the first season of the first Doctor's Doctor Who. There's one moment where something looks to me so terrible that I actually chuckle and love it. But we'll get to it. We're at the extremely heavy door. The Doctor opens the pyramid's front door with the sonic, but Mary tells them to leave. The mummy wants to feast on her soul, but it doesn't want anyone else. The Doctor locks the door behind them and tells Mary that it wasn't her singing that woke it. It was just his time to wake up and eat. Souls, stories, sentiments. Her people have been doing this for generations. They pick a young girl to be Queen of Years, teach her all that their civilization has done, so when the old god wakes, they can feed her to it, hoping it will satisfy him and return to sleep. The masked men in black reappear and try to take Mary to the mummy, but end up having a sonic battle with the Doctor. Clara asks Mary if she knows any songs about the pyramid and another way out, which of course she does. They escape. The men in black fade away. They escape, and the real old god, the celestial object Akhaten, wakes up.
So this is where we get the second Indiana Jones homage with the sonic screwdriver almost being crushed.
Yeah.
He gets it like the hat from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
and here I'm thinking, into every generation is born a Slayer.
Yes, that's I'm thinking.
John, I'm kind of curious. You said you love this episode. I'm not knocking the episode at all, but what's your feeling about some of the campiness of this episode?
Well, I'll tell you right now, when the Sonic battle was happening, I turned to Lauren and I said, so which season did he not have the Sonic? Was that because I was like, oh, now I see why I would go back if I was in production and be like, this is why we need to stop using the Sonic as much.
Right.
This was that was ridiculous. I kind of did like one of the head in hands, like, oh man, what are we doing here? I mean, I get it. It seemed like Sonic versus Sonic technology, but it's too much for me.
Yeah, I think if they pointed out just what you said, like something about the way that they were whispering, if he turned that against them with again, how many times we say on our show, one sentence could have just switched it from like what to that's really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I will say with the Sonic in this episode, it's like when he was trying to use it to open the door, didn't he say something like it changes like 10 million quintillion or whatever times a second? And it's like, and then a second later it's like, oh wait, but I get to do this now. Like, oh, I figured it out. It's like, okay, come on. Like so fast.
Yeah.
I
But
know
on
they
wood,
had like a lot to get through in 40 minutes, but
on wood it takes centuries.
oh yes.
That's right.
And three going at once.
I don't get the little girl pins Clara to the glass cage it's like here to feed on her.
No. Just take
to stop her.
Mary, seriously, get out.
Oh, okay.
Mary's like, no, it wants me, it doesn't want you. And that's when the doctor said, so you want us to just leave and not come back? Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm trying to save you guys. Get out.
All right, it kind of confused me a little bit because it looked like she was giving her to the monster.
Right. That is confusing. She should have put her against another wall.
Yeah.
And this is also where I have problems with the episode from a writing perspective because, okay, so they're called the Vigil?
Vigil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You
metal.
know, so it's like, okay, so they show up in the beginning. Oh, they're bad. Then they disappear. They never come back. Now they've come back and, okay, they're gone. So what was the point of them except to have the Sonic battle?
Style over substance.
Yeah.
Right.
And I wouldn't mind that so much, except at the exact same time, the big bad of the episode, the mummy, is now revealed to be useless.
Yeah.
And that the mummy is nothing.
It's a
Well,
lot.
but I agree with you. It's like a mislead to mislead to mislead to mislead.
I
Yeah,
liked that twist though. I enjoyed
I wouldn't have minded one of them, but
Mm.
two of them, it was so jarring. Where it's like, okay, this episode's lost me. What are you trying to do?
What's the two?
The Vigil show up
Oh, the three.
And the
wind
mummy.
up doing nothing. Yeah, and
See,
then the
to
mummy.
Me, those are just for creep factor. Like I don't.
Exactly. Make it better. Make it mean something. Why are you there? Why are you spending the money? Oh, and this
Scare
is also,
kids, so kids are jumping behind the sofas.
No, but they could have combined the two. Where the
I
three.
think so too, yeah.
Have the mummy break out earlier. And this is also the production thing that I was mentioning earlier. The door, so Mary sings the other song and the second door opens. It's really bad. When you look through the door,
Yeah.
it's kind of bad there. It's even worse where you see them when they run back into the little, they run back into where the moped is. They come around the corner. Look behind the doctor when he's running around running through that doorway towards the moped.
Yeah.
It's literally like a tarp. The space is like a tarp with like ping pong
Pinhole.
balls
Or pinholes.
painted.
Yeah.
Or pinholes to show a light through it. I mean, it literally reminds me of the wall of the TARDIS that used to be just a.
Sheet.
Yeah.
And I just look at, and you can also tell the floor. It's like that big area is like 3/4 of a foot long before it hits the backdrop. And they try and make it look longer by darkening the flooring, but then he puts his foot on it. It's just the worst production value ever. And
They were just throwing it back.
yeah, it was just. It was so funny.
I think they had small spaces to work with in real life, like
Yeah.
outside of the marketplace, like,
Oh yeah.
you know, in the amphitheater, like they had a big vision, but then once they had to actually shoot any real life stuff, it gets very claustrophobic. Yeah, that's hidden door that goes right around to where the moped is like there's no space at all. It's like a
Right.
few feet away. There's no
Yeah.
tunnels that they have to go through to get back out of the hatch on the other side of the planet or anything like that. It's
I think that this had a different story to start with because I liked the Sonic battle, and I know I'm a little embarrassed to say so, but I did because they were the whisperers, the Vigil, because they had power in their voices. So they had to keep quiet to talk.
Oh.
And then whenever you see Banshee or other thing from Marvel that have that voice, it comes out similar to that. So there's a sonic attack that they had. So, but I definitely see the other way as well.
It also felt like it was like back-to-back big uses for the Sonic. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this
Right.
door is impossible to open. I did it, and now I'm holding off Sonic voice. And it just felt like two back-to-back like big huge uses. And I mean, maybe you're right, maybe this was a bigger story and they chopped it down. And I think that's also why this is another speech that I enjoyed. Maybe the speeches feel like they come in big waves, but this was the speech when the doctor's telling
Right.
Mary there's only one of
Yes.
you, and I loved that too. I thought
Mhm.
that was wonderfully written. So we have 3 big speeches and we haven't even gotten to the
Third
big
one.
yet. Yeah.
And I love, is it this speech or the other middle speech where Clara says, you said we don't walk away. And he says, but sometimes you take what you need and run.
If it's something pressure to you.
Yeah, there's something precious. And then you run, which plays on the other cliche and motif of the show, which is you're always running. There's so
Yeah.
much running
Yeah.
with the doctor. The doctor is solving the problem, and sometimes solving the problem is running.
Yes.
And it's not cowardice, it's not avoiding the problem, it's solving the problem by running. There's just a lot of running. So much running.
Yeah. Well, the running is also, the larger motif of the show and of the doctor's motivation. He stole TARDIS and ran away. Like he's been running from something
Yeah.
for a
Or
very
two.
long time. Yeah.
But it is, it's like, but we never walk away from a problem. I
Mhm.
love that. I thought
That was great, too.
fantastic.
I do want to touch on what John just said about the Kate explaining that she's precious and she's the only one. In that same great little monologue, he essentially said, "Life started real far away from here, so
Yeah.
not in the center of your little
Yeah,
solar
right.
system that you think it does." So
Yeah.
essentially, he was also saying your religion is not right.
Yes,
Right.
I love that too.
Cultural
That's one of my
beliefs
favorite things.
is wrong.
Well, it's
Interesting.
it's what they believe.
Exactly, which is very diplomatic of him.
Yes.
But
then
he says
to
it.
her
He
face.
says it. No, oh,
Says
I'm
it in a
sorry.
great
Just to
way.
interject. He says it in a very sensitive way, and in
Yeah.
a non-condescending, in a very loving way. He says it.
Very,
Yeah.
very true.
Could-
But just if you look at like what he has to, I feel like he wouldn't have said that if he didn't feel like he needed to make her understand that she does not have to sacrifice herself. So I completely agree. It was a very kind way that he did it, but it's also like this culture is probably not going to be the same after this.
Yeah.
And also, I love how he describes the soul is your stories. The person that you are is your memories, and your soul is your stories. Like, I like that. I like that a lot. That
We're all
makes that
stories in
movie
the
work.
end, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm glad I was waiting for you, John, to bring this up because I was like, you like it? Let you bring it up. But I also like this speech here because it reminds me of the Russell era. Like one person is unique and fantastic.
Yeah.
The ordinary, even though she's special-ish because of her role in this particular society. But just the pep talk he gives her is great, and that's how I always kind of see the Doctor, like getting somebody through something that they just need that little push of courage. And he even throws in a funny line with, because he talks about an event like the Big Bang, and then you turn into cabbage, and then you.
Well, that was Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody else, because Eugene just brought it up, did anybody else get a Davis feeling, a Russell feeling from this episode? Because when they're in the marketplace, it felt very Russell-like, and that Moffat was trying to name all the aliens in that crazy Davis way.
Yeah.
So this whole episode just has little bits of Davis in it. I thought that was interesting.
Like even going back to that line of, I took my granddaughter here once.
Yeah.
It's just a throwaway line instead of it being like a plot point to something else.
Yeah.
But I think, talking about the Sonic, like it was overused, but I think only because I think this episode needs to be viewed as more of a sword and sandal fantasy.
Mhm.
So the Sonic is like the magic wand, that's doing all this powerful stuff for the sorcerer. But yeah, especially like thinking about it more with the backdrops being a little more campier. I think when I was, I think fantasy was on my mind before about how this episode should be viewed. I think the sword and sandal genre is actually like really appropriate for this episode, or what they were going for.
What does that mean? Sword
That's-
and sandal.
Like Conan, like that we just watched, where like
Where
people
they're
are
using swords and wearing sandals.
and it's like magic fantasy where you're dealing with evil or some sort of villain that's like
Like old
almost
world.
inhuman. Yeah.
Like Bronze Age and Steel, stuff like that. Like Beastmaster, they sacrificed a kid to the pyramid.
Exactly. Like the pyramid stuff, the zombie vampire thing. Yeah.
The Doctor is a space wizard.
Mhm.
In this
In
one.
this episode, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Has been Merlin before. Clara and Mary escape on the moped back to the marketplace asteroid. Leaving the Doctor to face Akhaten, Mary wants to help and begins singing again, eventually joined by all of the worshippers. The Doctor tells Akhaten to feed off his history, all the stories that make up the Doctor. It eats it up, but is not full. Clara returns and offers Akhaten her leaf, the most important leaf in human history, she says. It's not only full of stories, but full of what might have been, infinite possible stories. Infinity is too much for the old gods, and it implodes. Hopefully now, asleep for good.
I was really getting into the idea of the god feeding on the monumental history that the Doctor brings, but it wasn't. He was still going to remember it. It wasn't taking anything from him. It was
there's
just
no sacrifice.
Yeah, it was. It may have worn him out and killed him, but like everything we've seen, people when here with the god part of it, you present something sentimental and it dissipates into the air, into energy, and then gets sent forth. Whereas none of that was happening with the Doctor. So I see how she was going to save him, but we didn't see any real physical threat. So when she actually rushed off to save him, I kind of was like, wait, why is she like he found a way to do it?
Yes.
And but in hindsight, like after it was happening, I realized, oh, she was saving him, but from what? Because then even the leaf dissipates, everything dissipates except he wasn't. So visually, I don't think it was working in that regard. Story-wise, it's great. Yeah.
Well, I think when Clara rushed off I mean, maybe she didn't know that he physically was okay, like because she couldn't see him, right? She was
That's
still
true.
she was at where the amphitheater is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she
Right.
was probably like, she had that flashback of her mom, saying, "I'll always find you, I'll always be there," or whatever, whatever that she said. And then she's like, "Well, I'm gonna go find this moped," and then zoom, bad CGI
Right.
later,
Okay,
he
yeah.
shows up. So I think she was like being there, showing up to help her friend, and he was weakened in some way.
Yeah.
So who knows if he kept going, if he would have
If it would-
ultimately perished.
true.
We don't
Right.
know.
It just wasn't. Again, it wasn't clear.
Oh yeah, no, it
No, it
definitely
wasn't.
wasn't consistent. Because like you're
Yeah.
right, even when the crowd at the amphitheater held up their offerings, they
Right.
turned to
'Cause-
gold dust and blew away.
Right, because the thought of, oh my God, the doctor's going to give up all his memories, like 1,000 years of memories, all that's what makes the doctor the doctor. The reason he knows so much is because he's experienced so much. So he's giving up himself. Like it's a big deal.
Mhm.
But the idea that what it ended up being is even that wasn't enough for this god, but infinity is. Again, great ideas. It was just they weren't landing exactly. I mean, we look back on it and now we're like, wow, that's so interesting. But you're left a little like confused while it was happening.
Well, what also didn't land was that moped. The way they filmed it
Or take
was,
off.
Yeah, because we said in the Bells of St. John, you hear the crash and you immediately picture the motorcycle crashing as it goes anti-grav up the shard. This one, I'm like, you could have taken that like advice from that production crew or that camera crew and kind of edited it in a better way, because when she lands in that amphitheater, I'm like, that's clearly just a static shot. Nothing happened.
Although I do have to say the shot of the silhouette of the doctor in front of Akhaten before, for me, it's before the face shows up.
Yes.
So when it still just looks like a celestial being and you get the silhouette, I want a poster of that.
Yeah.
That is so good.
And how about that one bit where he drops his head? It looks like he's headless.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I did like that shot, but the other shot just reminded me so much of Satan's Pit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these aliens in this world having such a wide variety of facial construction, and this god looks like a human skull. That's a little design-wise. I was a little, I could get like two eyes. Yeah. I think, and to the point we made before, this is a very children-oriented episode.
Yeah, they had to get the idea across to the kids.
Give the kids what they want.
And watching this episode, I don't know how many times I've seen this, but watching it this past week, I took the doctor giving up his memories as a way to kind of get over Amy and Rory. And this is just on this last time. It's I almost projected onto the doctor saying, "Take from me," can you kind of get Amy and Rory's like goodbye away from me, because I'm not over it yet. And that was like a shortcut to dealing with grief.
Yeah. But again,
but I don't see any change in him at that point.
No, there's no sense that he was giving memories up. It was, again,
that's the part that's
intent,
inconsistent.
Yeah.
And I'm just projecting what my feelings were for that episode last week.
Yeah.
We did some YouTube searches for this episode to see if there was any like behind the scenes or extra stuff. We did find a cool behind the scenes with the motorcycle or the moped. And they had like a full on green screen with this moped like animated and like moving around. So I think that was part of the issue, is that they had all this green screen footage of them, but then the practical, there was no way to like marry the two.
I think
marry the two.
Right.
And then we also saw a video that took the ending monologue here and put it up against like the entire history of the Doctor.
Nope, couldn't watch that.
Did you guys make it, or did you see it?
I'm saying I could not get through that.
No,
I mean, we were crying just watching this episode.
I thought you meant you didn't like it.
No, it's too much. It's too much sadness and grief and loss and the curse of the Time Lords, etc., etc.
This montage like really made me feel like it was more of the writer saying like, take all my stories, there's never enough for you, just like the weird context flip of it. I know in the episode,
and Moffat is the old god.
It's like, take everything, it's never enough, So that was
like
an
Cool
interesting.
Hand Luke.
Yeah, and I only saw that watching this other montage. I didn't get that at all from the show itself. Just taking that monologue out of context and setting it with like, stories are our souls, and I'm gonna give you my soul, which is my stories, which is like,
Interesting.
It makes sense if you know that Auburn thinks that all writers have the conflated image of themselves.
All right, it's coming together. Okay.
Yeah, Barton Fink is one of my favorite movies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, all these mistakes being said, I do like this episode a lot. I kind of like, okay, this is what we're being fed. We're being fed ice cream, not steak today. So I'll enjoy the ice cream.
But I will say, I think the monologue on its own is a little piece of steak on that ice cream.
Oh, sure.
Ooh,
If that makes sense. Steak ice
It's
cream.
ice cream with a lot of good bits of chocolate in it.
Yeah, for sure.
This episode for me, similar to previous episodes, like the whole episode hinges on this scene. Like I can forgive everything else in this episode. Like, and it's also like this scene, this is the scene that stays with me. Like I don't even remember the Whispermen. I don't even remember the Sonic battle when we're talking about it. I'm like, what that happened? I don't even remember that because this scene is the one that stays with me. Matt Smith, I mean, he cries.
Yeah.
Like what?
That kills me. It's just one.
It's perfect.
Yeah, he somehow so easily, well, I mean, it looked easy because Matt Smith is super talented, but he like tapped into the ethos of the character and the whole history of the show to pull out like an incredibly breathtaking performance. And also the music in the background, Murray Gold, I'm sure was we should thank him for that. But like the haunting music, the childlike voices, like behind this visually beautiful and beautiful performance is just I would say top 5 monologues of easy.
Yeah, this is the monologue like to end the episode on, and I think it was Brian that mentioned in a couple episodes ago that episodes kind of just hinge on the monologue, and it felt like the writer was working to get to this point.
Yeah.
And doing some research, the scene of the amphitheater and all the other aliens and I guess tributaries, if you will, singing with Mary. He was inspired by the scene in Casablanca where they're singing the French anthem over the German anthem.
Yes,
We
that
just
Rex?
recently watched that.
Wow, that's a great. Yes. Oh man, that's such a great scene.
Yeah.
Oh, chills.
So it's like I can see what he was going and what inspired him. That worked for me at the end.
Okay, I have a problem. Sorry.
Go on.
When they're singing, when Mary starts to sing to help, and then everybody else joins in, help me, because I don't understand why at that point they're singing "Wake Up." I've never understood that. It confuses me it's like you're trying to help them put the god back to sleep, and you're singing now for the very first time in the episode. You've started to sing "Wake Up." Okay, I've got to be missing something, and I admit it's my fault. What am I missing?
You're not missing anything, because I had the same thing. It starts off with rest now and then moves into wake up. But when you said that, this light bulb just went off, and it's one of my Frankisms, where I rationalize things that make no sense to see if I can make it work. And what she's singing is "Stay Awake" from Mary Poppins. Does that work?
That's it. I'm good.
Wow. All right.
I don't know. That just hit
Mary
me because
Poppins
I
time
agree with
card.
you. I had that problem of why are they singing "Wake Up"?
It's a lullaby.
Right.
I love it.
I think I could take I might have a theory. Well, I mean, if by this point in the episode she knows that maybe it wasn't an inevitability that the old god would wake up, so it's like there's no point in trying to put it back to sleep. And since the songs and the stories of their culture is their soul, I mean, why try to put him back to sleep when he's waking up anyway, or he's already awake? Like it's in that like placebo effect kind of way that they already know that it's not gonna satiate him. Essentially, it's not gonna fill him up. I don't know. Maybe I just feel like because if it was all a sham anyway, they weren't really keeping him asleep. It was
Maybe
just
she's singing to the masses.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's the only song they know how to sing together.
Yeah.
From the top.
With the subtitles on, and the first 2 lines are "Rest now, my warrior." So I'm wondering if the song is to the Doctor.
Oh, okay, all right. I like that.
Especially the let the cloak of life cling to your bones part.
Man,
right? That's the song.
I'd have to listen to it again. I literally, as you
I
were
just
saying
watched
it popped up.
the subtitles. I think that's to the
I want
Doctor.
to rewatch it with subtitles.
So what if because we're all like, why didn't he like disintegrate and die? Because maybe
That's what I was saying before.
Maybe that was counteracting it. Them
I
singing.
I like that. I wish that they had done that visually so we could connect that way.
We needed a little Care Bear stare. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when we're talking about this, at least for me, we've done so much of, wait, what were they trying to do? I'm confused. I'm confused. That's what gets me about this episode. I'm still confused by this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Frank, it was like, I read your first draft of the summary. I remember I said to you, "Oh, is that what's going on?" I never knew that, and and then I watched it again, and it changed. I got confused again. Yeah, it just
it's like Shakespeare. They teach classes, and you get a whole degree in it just to interpret it.
I'm gonna say my unpopular opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the speech.
Wow.
Okay.
You did not.
I'm kind of there with you.
Oh wait, we lost Frank and Brian. What happened?
Wow, that's crazy.
Okay, next paragraph. Yeah.
I thought the speech by itself was fine. It just didn't seem like it fit into the story because of the tone of the fantasy. And to me, it seems so similar to the other speeches that Matt has given. It seems
Like the Big
too
Bang.
similar.
Yeah.
It's almost like, here's the same type of speech, change these words, give the same type of thing. I think he did it well. It just for
Really
me was
well.
too many times that he's done the same type of speech. Okay, who's the first one to take their shot at me when he's
Yeah.
at Stonehenge?
Oh,
That's
man.
exactly what there's one point in this speech where I want to yell, somebody else go first. Because that's what he's like, here I am, take it all. Somebody else go first.
I don't know. I have such an issue with that monologue in general.
Yeah.
Like-
I love that monologue.
Well, it's like, I mean, I like it until you find out that it's all a trap anyway.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
So it's like
Yeah.
that took all of the gumption. I know it's a totally different
Yeah.
episode, and I don't want to talk about too much, but I mean, I love it and it's iconic. But then, oh wait,
But
it
it's
doesn't
Yeah.
mean
it's a
anything.
fake.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I mean, not that it was bad or anything, and I know everybody liked it. I don't know, I'm a small little
You're allowed to not like things.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a personal attack.
I see your point, Frank, but I think that's why I like the middle speech the best, because
Yes.
he's doing it for a little girl. He's like getting to motivate her, where this one, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
I think I really obviously love it because
Yes.
Matt Smith's performance is amazing, but I also
Yes.
love it 'cause it's like a little private moment.
Yeah.
The Doctor's alone on this little floating asteroid or whatever, staring down this old god to save a civilization,
Yeah.
maybe.
That's a
So
good
it
point.
And just like reflecting on his past and his history, and his grief and pain. It's just like if you look at it as like it's a little aside from the Doctor to the Doctor. I think it has a lot of meaning. And does it fit in this episode? Maybe not exactly, but it is those types of monologues are what I love from the Doctor.
Like I could say clipping that out and showing it to somebody. You know, this is part of it. I think it would have a lot more impact and things. So I do like it in that way, but it just each time it doesn't move me like it does everybody else.
Totally fine.
Sorry, I'm lonely.
Oh.
They return home, and Clara asks the Doctor why he was at his mother's funeral. She remembers that. He tells her that she reminds him of someone who recently died. A red flag goes off in Clara's head, and she tells the Doctor that she is not a replacement for his friend. She will travel with him, but as herself. The Doctor hands Clara her mother's ring, telling her that the people of Akhaten wanted her to have it back as gratitude for saving them. She did that, not his old friend. She leaves the TARDIS, looking forward to their next adventure.
I was really touched by that. I think that whole moment with everyone wanted her to have it.
Yeah.
I didn't like the abruptness of, boom, they're just back in the TARDIS back home. There was no wrap up with the people, with Mary or anybody. And in that scene, I thought it was great that she got the ring back. I wish we had seen the people give her the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been
That would've
great.
been
That
great.
costs money.
Bunch of money.
But they gave it to the Doctor, you know.
No,
we
no,
didn't
that
see it.
costs the production costs
Oh,
money.
yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I totally get that.
Mhm.
But it would have been a much even more, it's like, again, it's don't say it, show it.
Yes.
You know, being in television production and stuff like that, I can't help but see. It's like that scene in Apollo 13 where it's like, we got to fit this hole into this hole using only these things. You know, it's like, we can't do that. Well, it's due Friday.
I think it would have been better, although much more expensive, where you're back in the amphitheater or even in the marketplace, and the people give her the ring back, and they have that moment, and that provides closure for those characters, and then they're walking back to the TARDIS, and that's when Clara says, "Why were you at my mother's funeral?" You still could have had that intimate moment regarding their character connections, but just separate it from the ring, which that really wasn't the Doctor's emotional moment. That was the characters and Clara's emotional moment. Give it to the characters that are involved. You still could have, because this, in the TARDIS, he gives her the ring, and she's like, oh, that's nice. Why were you at my mother's funeral?
But she was asking about that. You remind me of somebody I used to know. She's dead. And for me, Clara had the whole Rebecca idea, where an old story of Rebecca is the man's first wife dies and he finds someone that reminds him of his first wife and tries to have her become the original wife thing. So to me, I just saw her saying, oh, good God, no, don't do that. So it was after that he gave the ring, saying, you're not her. This is your mother's, and this is what saved the day. And so I think that was the bonding between the Doctor and Clara, to go, I don't see you like her. You remind me of her, but you're not her. I can see that because here's your ring back. They all like what you did and honor what you did. So I think that's what they were trying to say.
Yeah, they used the planet's people to serve that story point. They weren't two separate story points.
That is true, but like the other speech, it doesn't work. He doesn't mean it. She's still the impossible girl.
Wait, he doesn't mean what?
He still sees Clara as Enigma.
As the crack, he sees Clara as the impossible girl, the equivalent to the crack in the wall.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's still a mystery that he needs to solve. But this episode serves to, I think someone just said this, but like separate her from the governess, separate her from Dalek Clara. You know, it's like she is a version of her, but she's her own version. And good for her for stepping up.
Yes, and I think the Doctor gets it. She's her own version, but he's still, character-wise, he's still the Doctor from the beginning of the episode, trying to figure her out.
Right.
Such as the whole plot for season 7B.
Right.
Yes.
Until it's solved at the end.
Did anyone else, like, both times I watched this week, I kind of expected the Doctor to give her a key to the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Get
I
that?
did
Especially
too.
because that moment was so big with the TARDIS not opening, or they were kind of playing with expectations a little bit. Like, you think this is going to be the moment, because she's had all those other moments this episode.
Yeah. But isn't there a motif that the TARDIS doesn't like her?
Mm-hmm. And I always view that as Moffat is keeping up the idea that companions are now part-time. Yes, Amy and Rory had a key to the TARDIS because they were full-time companions, but then they went part-time, and it really feels at this point that Clara's going to be a part-time companion because he takes her home and she walks out of the TARDIS at the end of the episode. They don't go off on another adventure. So I think it is like, he just likes that idea that these people are not full-time companions, that their lives continue on Earth. So
do you think he likes it?
Yeah, because he does it all throughout.
Bill
does it for the rest of his stay on the show. Yeah, because even Bill.
Moffat. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying the Doctor likes it. I'm like, I think he's probably pretty sad and lonely in between those Wednesdays.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think the Doctor likes it at all. I think it's too complicated for him. Yes. He doesn't like it. Right. But no, Moffat really loves it. I, as a viewer, don't like it.
Oh, we got that.
Oh. Am I the only one who also laughed at Jiggity Jig?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, no, I laughed as well.
Because he's okay, we're back home again, Jiggity Jig, which starts off with to market, which is where they win. So I just had that little giggle.
So Frank, like I remember that from Blade Runner, but I know it's been in something else. So what did you remember it from, like other than the nursery rhyme, from like
only the nursery rhyme?
Nobody, I feel like it's been in a movie,
and then I just remember it.
I think it's in some older. I think it's in a Disney movie possibly as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was hoping one of you would remember it from a Disney movie or so. Oh well. All right, so Michael Dixon plays Dave, which is Clara's father. Nicola Thorpe plays...
He also plays older Dave.
Allegedly older.
Slightly.
And then Nicola Thorpe plays Ellie, which is Clara's mother. And this is her first acting credit.
Nice.
Oh.
Amelia Jones plays Mary. She is Kinsley Locke in Lock and Key on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Chris Anderson plays the chorister. Aidan Cook plays the mummy. He will be in a future Doctor Who episode as a Zygon. Feth Greenwood plays Doreen. She's the moped dog seller. John Davey plays one of the Vigil members. And again, we met him at Gallifrey.
Okay.
A couple
He's
years
like
ago.
The monster of all trades.
Yeah. And then Neil Cross is the writer of this episode, and he is the creator and showrunner of Luthor.
Oh.
So it was more of like a weird, let's say, showrunner thing with Moffat and him. They were like, "You run this show. You run this show. Hey, do you have time to write for my show?" He goes, "I can fit it. I can fit it in." And so he was given this episode to write.
Yeah. He also wrote Hyde.
Yes, I was gonna. Yeah, we haven't gone there yet, but yes.
Great episode as well.
So, the Rings of Akhaten. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
Well, hopefully I won't change it. But I think fan. I think a younger new viewer might enjoy this right off the bat because there's all the things where you're like, what? Most kids would probably be like, what? With most shows. But there's just, even though this is a very enjoyable show, you don't get what it's trying to mean without knowing more things about it. I feel like what I enjoyed about this episode was stuff that I brought with me. I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed the Jabba's palace. I enjoyed, a lot of elements of it. But I don't think it's a good episode just based on that. I think it's a better episode when you're at least waist deep in the lore.
Oh,
fan.
Yes. I wrote that down.
Yes, I'm gonna agree with Josh because I was leaning towards fan only because I feel like I enjoyed this episode better on watching it for our podcast and not necessarily the first time I watched it. I really enjoyed Matt in this episode. I was in between new viewer and fan, so I was like constantly going back and forth. It was like if I knew nothing, would I still enjoy this episode? And so it's like it's hard for me because like I feel like maybe if you didn't know anything, you would still enjoy this episode because it's fun. It's got a lot to it. Maybe as a new viewer, because there's so much, you might just be swept up in everything. But I'm gonna say fan. So I'm gonna say that this episode is good for fans. It's a good episode for fans.
This could be for a new person because it does introduce Clara on her first real trip in the TARDIS, going into space and into a different time. And she brings a lot of good energy. I like the chemistry between the two, and I think that's done really well. But I wouldn't put it for a new person just because I think there are better episodes to try and get somebody hooked into the show. I think casual, in a little bit opposite way of what Josh was saying, in that as a fan or diehard, we know too much. So we are going, well, this isn't what the TARDIS does. We know about the translation, and we didn't have that. So I think just someone who is a casual watcher would kind of get, okay, just going along, this is what I'm presented, this is what the story is, I get it. It's basic without going too dark into it. So I'm going to vote for a casual.
Well, you can probably tell I don't like this episode.
No, really?
No. Because I disagree with a lot of things that have been said. This episode doesn't do what I think is, for me, the kiss of death. It never makes me angry. I don't get angry at this episode. But for me, this episode isn't steak or ice cream. It's oatmeal. It's just there. And yeah, for me, it's incredibly bland. And also the way I look at it is I could sum this episode up to anyone and say a monster wakes up and the doctor thinks real hard on it. Literally. And I would never show this to try to get someone into Doctor Who because I'm a diehard and I still don't understand the writing after multiple views. Sorry. I'm going to say fan because, a fan is already into Doctor Who. So, and this episode's not going to push them one way or the other. I don't know. It's just every time I don't watch this episode much. And one last thing, now with my Clara retrospective, it really annoys me that leaf suddenly is the most important leaf in all of human history. You narcissistic, arrogant person, you. And it has infinite possibilities where the doctor doesn't satiate the monster. No, her leaf does. Oh, it bugs me.
Oh, no, because the object is the sentiment attached to it.
I know.
That is the most important leaf to her. And her
but that's not what, yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
We'll discuss it later because I don't mean it. I know exactly.
Okay.
Well, I think today I'm going to agree with Frank and put this episode into a casual category. Many of the reasons already mentioned, but I think it is fun. Like, it is a very fun episode. I would not recommend it to somebody if they had no idea about Doctor Who. But if they were just getting into Doctor Who a little bit and wanted something fun, I think I could recommend this episode confidently. Casual.
I'm going to go with fan. I think because the whole episode is about what things mean to us personally and the history. And I think a lot of especially the main speech brings a lot of weight if you know the history of Doctor Who. So I'm going to go with fan. And yeah.
I'm between casual and fan, personally, because I feel like the Clara start and end definitely requires you to have seen the previous handful of episodes. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, I don't think it'd be good for a new viewer. Like, I wouldn't, if somebody was like asking me what sampling should I watch to get into Doctor Who, I definitely wouldn't list this one. So I think I'd probably say casual fan, because I agree. I forget who said it, but fans maybe know too much and they see the holes too clearly. And I completely agree. Yeah, I think that's very true. And if you are just a casual fan, you could enjoy it more than crazy fans like us. Crazy. Yeah.
I've said that in other episodes, just not this episode.
Yeah, I just feel like I was watching it and I'm like, this is almost, in my opinion, this could be a standalone episode if it didn't have the Clara arc at the beginning and then at the end. Like if you just swap those out, it could be an independent an independent thing for a casual viewer to really enjoy.
It's close.
I always see if there's something that can push it into the new category. And I think if I was introducing this episode to a kid, there would be a lot for them to get out of it, because I think it's really primarily aimed at kids. But me as a fan, I am the one taking time to revisit this episode and then kind of be on a podcast and then make these plot holes that don't necessarily work. And I think that's helped me enjoy this episode, because I can hear other people's theories of what is going on, where I'm like, why is this here? And then also it brings the subtext to certain conversations, because if you're a fan, you will know what the Doctor has just went through with losing Amy and Rory and then finding Clara in different time periods. A new viewer won't know that. So that's why it knocks it out of the new viewer category for me. And I think I'm just gonna have to go with a fan, because I'm a fan and I was able to enjoy it this episode, because the first time I watched it, I thought it was okay. And I watched it again, not so much. And then watching it, I watched it twice this past week. I was able to enjoy it because I know what the episode is going for, and I'm able to sort of do the research and take the time to see what the writer was going for with like that Casablanca scene. And I was Casablanca is one of my favorite movies, so I'm glad that he put something in there. I was able to enjoy it because I'm a fan. So thanks again to John and Lauren for joining us on this episode. Can you tell our listeners where to find you?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at BANCROFFED, Bancroft, kind of like my last name.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at JP Thrice. I also have a Doctor Who podcast called Podcastica that I do with my good friend Taylor. We talk about classic Who mostly because we've run through most of current Who.
Yes.
So we're doing the oldies now.
And you guys have the best and/or titles.
Those are all Taylor. Thank you. That's all Taylor.
They're so good.
It's still funny.
He has a couple of them that he puts in, and then he just I don't know if he just goes, yes, that one. Sometimes during the episode we come up with random nonsense. But I'm actually out for the next episode, and I off the top of my head cannot remember what they're doing. But we just did the Sunmakers.
Oh yeah.
Which was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that one, but yeah.
We just did the Dalek Invasion of Earth where Susan leaves.
Yes. We actually have not. Is that an 8-parter?
6.
It's 6.
Feels like 8.
Yeah. Well, we probably won't do it for a while then, because we haven't done that one yet.
Well, thanks again, John and Lauren, for joining us. We will
Thank
see
you for
you.
having us.
Thank you for having us. This
And
is
hopefully
great.
we'll see you next time. We'll see you. We'll be either at another recording or at Gallifrey 1.
Hopefully.
So that wraps up the Rings of Akhaten. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page. Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, enable the AnyPod podcast skill. Ask AnyPod to play the Who Knew Podcast.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
The longest-running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis,
Thanks to Russell, Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
Delia Derbyshire.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
your work continues to inspire and entertain.
And the real old Doctor, the celestial object called Akhaten, wakes up.
Read that again.
Read that last sentence.
What did I do?
You said
The real
doctor
old
for...
doctor.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
William Hartnell appears.